aim for today's program is to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. So this webinar would serve as a platform for all RSEN members to get together, share and disseminate ideas, information and efforts regarding sustainability that have been undertaken by the various RSEN partners at their various local communities from Malaysia, Indonesia, Japan, Philippines and Thailand. So the objectives of today's webinar are to provide, the first one is to provide a comprehensive exposure through education to the concept of SDGs in the local ecosphere. The second one is to share views and concerns about challenges and good practices in SDG 4 during the during and post COVID-19 pandemic. Hope everyone will enjoy throughout the webinar. So now I would like to invite Professor Dr. Mira to give a brief welcoming speech.
Thank you, Cikgu Nurul. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and salam sejahtera. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. First of all, Alhamdulillah that this webinar is able to take place today. And on behalf of RCE Penang USM and also Sekolah Menengah Datuk On, as a member of RSEN, as a network, we would like to welcome and we would like to appreciate and acknowledge first Professor Roslan Mak Hashim, Deputy Vice Chancellor KPI, Kelestarian dan Pembangunan Institusi USM, Prof. Datuk Ahmad Farhan Saidullah, Deputy Vice Chancellor for Academic and International Affairs USM, our distinguished speakers, Prof. Dr. Wirat, Tuan Haji Roland from the Southwest District Education Office, Penang, Mr. Mark Mann from UNESCO Bangkok, Mr. Eddie Shahputra from Ikatan Guru Malaysia, and our warm thank you and appreciation to Pengetua Sekolah Menengah Datuk On as collaborator of this event. And a very warm greetings to all the teachers who are participants in today's webinar. And the teachers are from Penang and also the northern region of Penang, of Malaysia, as well as from Indonesia. So I would like actually to take this opportunity to thank everyone who has been involved, especially the RCE Penang team, Dr. Noraida, and team, and also the pengetua of Sekolah Menengah Datuk On, and also Cikgu Farsha. And just a short welcoming remark. So if we reflect COVID-19, we hope it's a visitor who will not stay with us, but we have no idea how long it will stay with us. And in the short, let's say it's a short 10 months, we have seen that it has already challenged and questioned the ordinary issues we as educators face. For example, we used to have this idea of a classroom with walls and desks and chair, but it has challenged that. We now have classroom without walls. Our classes normally are during the day and now it can happen anytime. Our classes normally it takes so much time to travel, but now today, for example, we are meeting teachers in Indonesia and Malaysia, and the speed is the speed of light, you know, as it transfer what we are talking right now to our colleagues in other parts of the world. So because of that, we are re-asking the question, what is the purpose of education, especially as a result of COVID-19 pandemic? Has it transformed us? Has it changed us And who are the players now? For example, in the last 10 months, we have seen teachers, the role of teachers is expanded, especially for our children. It's not only the formal teachers, it has now included the parents. It has included society. It has included technology. So those are questions that we as educators would like to delve, and we are very fortunate today. We have distinguished speakers who will share with us their insights, and with that, it would perhaps inspire us as educators to probe further into the issue. So I think that would be, because an opening remark, people say should be short and sweet. So with that, I'd like to hand over the microphone to Cikgu Nurul Asma, and again, a deep gratitude and thank you to all our distinguished speakers and also to our attendees who are here from both Indonesia and Malaysia. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you for that, Professor Dr. Munira, the coordinator RCE Penang of USM. So for today's program is a collaboration program between SMK Dato' An Butterworth or Dato' An Secondary School and also USM. So I'm very happy to share with all of you a brief video of Dato' An Secondary School. Without wasting any more time, I would like to invite Professor Dr. Mat Roslan Hashim, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Sustainability and Institutional Development, to give a short welcoming speech.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you to everybody for inviting me to address this international webinar series 1, Challenges on SDG 4, Quality Education, COVID pandemic perspective from Asian countries. First and foremost, again, congratulations organizing committee taking the effort together, educationists around the region to share what are the challenges and how do we move forward. So how do we move forward during this pandemic as far as Malaysia is concerned or Asian countries are concerned? And unfortunately, what we see now as far as Malaysia is concerned, we have seen the worst case scenario of COVID cases. But how do we move forward? With the COVID showing no sign of going to slow down, but the way forward, how we should move is that we should think of what's happening now as the educationists is put into a tunnel with all the constraints that surrounding us and making us think how do we go out from this tunnel. But thinking positively, we should use the time in the tunnel now to build our strength. With the blessing that we have, this internet era is a commonplace. So how we should take the advantage of connectivity, online learning to really build up our strength for the fact that when we go out of this tunnel as a leader in education, we should not expect that the thing get back normal. How long the tunnel is going to be, we never know. But rest assured, while we in the tunnel, we are building up our strength. As far as education is concerned, we have challenges in building the content and keep distancing ourselves, and how to achieve the objective in education. We know as far as SDG 4 is concerned, quality education, there are 4 elements included in this. And as far as SDG 4 is concerned, we are focusing on inclusive and quality education, literacy skills, social skills, and promoting lifelong learning. But I would like to remind ourselves that as far as quality education is concerned, I would like to refer to one of the experts in education, human cognitive expert by the name Howard Gardner, in his book written in 1983, Frames of Mind, talking about multiple intelligence, where he divided intelligence into not only just a single, but can be divided into 7 intelligence, which is a linguistic, logical, mathematics, musical, bodily, kinesthetic, spatial intelligence, interpersonal intelligence, intrapersonal intelligence. All this intelligence summarize human cognition in its fullness. Then they work at the same time. Just to give an example, to highlight this, that how with the pandemic COVID-19 surrounding us, making ourselves living like in the tunnel, restricting ourselves, but while we in the tunnel, building our capacity in order to fulfill the objective education, which is at least fulfilling these 7 intelligence. So the way forward with the challenges that we are facing, how can we achieve the objective of education in achieving or in building the 7 intelligence at least? Because there are many theories of education. One of these is shared or proposed by Howard Gardner. With the limitation that we have now, how can we look beyond education, beyond the classroom, where we have to confine the school children, we have to confine students in university in one cramped place, but rather we should think beyond this confined classroom, where they can be spread or even stay in where they are in their own house. So we should focus on how to use the internet, the content building, the creativity in the graphical presentation to build up this 7 intelligence that we talk about in their own place. Of course, for example, you cannot replace all of this intelligence by fully going online. But some people challenge the idea that we need to blend with face to face. But moving forward, if you have no choice, that the pandemic is going to be here for whatever time, we will never know. But thinking forward as the leaders in the education, we should think beyond this, that when we go out of the tunnel, the scenario maybe already changed. We will never get back to where we were before. So that while the time we are in the tunnel, we should build our strength in building up our capacity to use online learning in order to achieve objective in education. So I hope the seminar today going to shed light on the problems that we're facing, but more forward thinking on how to take the advantage of the readiness of online teaching in order to produce school children, to produce university students ready to face the challenge in the years to come, beyond the confined classroom. So with that, I conclude my talk, and all the best to the participants and presenters. So hopefully what the outcome that we're going to have from this seminar is going to be useful in moving forward to provide quality education for our nation. All the best. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for the welcoming speech, Professor Dr. Roslan Hashim, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Sustainability and Institutional Development. It is true that this pandemic challenge will not stop the educators, will never stop the educators to keep on their victory of the academic achievement. Now is the time we have been waiting for. I would like to invite our first speaker, Associate Professor Dr. Muhammad Wira bin Muhammad Shafi'i, Director of Center for Education and Training in Renewable Energy, Energy Efficiency and Green Technology.
Thank you very much to the Chair, Cikgu Nurul from SMK Dr. On Kabatawat. Can I extend my heartiest congratulations to the organizer of this international webinar, Series 1, Challenges on SDG 4 during COVID-19 pandemic, a perspective from Asian countries, for organizing such an interesting theme for the seminar, consisting of 6 presentations. I have been asked to give the first presentation looking into education and trying to relate it with the other concepts of SDG. If you may allow me to share my screen for my presentation, I would like to greet the other fellow presenters, the other 5 paper presenters who are going to come after this. This is actually, if you are to look at the 6 titles here, ladies and gentlemen, you could actually see that this is the only COVID-less title of all 6 presentations. The other 5 titles do actually have COVID-19 as part of the titles as well. This is not to say that it is not going to cover COVID-19, but this is actually to attempt to set the scene for quality education and with the other concept of SDGs in local ecosphere, especially in Asian countries. So I'm going to actually look at SDG 4, quality education. I'm going to actually relate it with the other SDG. If you're, of course, you're well aware that we have 17 SDGs. If I am not, I think I'm not wrong to say education is the only SDG that have reciprocal links with the other 17 SDGs, that have strong links with other SDGs in comparison with the other SDG. So this is to actually say it is an important SDG to be considered here. So the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development is actually a universal, holistic, and indivisible. And starting from 2015 until 2030, we have been given a period of 15 years to achieve all the 169 targets of SDGs, or the 17 SDGs. So we had gone through the 5 years. So we have got another 10 years to actually see whether we have managed to achieve all those 169 targets. And to actually target them, we need to actually look specifically at each one of those SDGs. I'm here to actually saying here, SDG 4, as I've said just now, is an important SDG. It could actually ensure inclusive and equitable quality education, and it plays a central role in building sustainable, inclusive, and resilient societies. And we want to change the world here. If I am to borrow from the late Nelson Mandela, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. So Nelson Mandela, who had gone through all the tribulations, all the physical problems, he could actually see the military strength, physical strength, influences are not that powerful in comparison to education if you want to change the world. And as I said just now, SDG 4 has a reciprocal linkages across the other 16 SDGs. If you are to look carefully at every goal in the 2030 agenda, it requires education to empower people with the knowledge, skills, and values to live in dignity, build their lives, and contribute to their societies. And it is actually the key. I'm trying to actually say this with a certain conviction, that it is actually the key that will allow many other SDGs to be achieved. So the premise here is this: you obtain a quality education, then you would actually provide a foundation to create a sustainable development to the whole world. But we have to see now, with the advance of COVID-19, we had started early this year. It had actually changed the landscape of SDG 4 dynamics to unprecedented levels. So we have to be aware that despite all the problems, all the challenges that we face, we are actually in a situation here whereby there is a new challenge to the achievement for SDG 4 and the achievement of the other SDGs under 2030 agenda. So what's the status of SDG 4? Since we started this in 2015, we are now in 2020, 5 years into it. We could actually say with a certain confidence that progress has been made towards achieving SDG 4. It's been recognized that there are new knowledge horizons and opportunities for strengthened solidarity and partnerships around the provision of quality education and lifelong learning for all. So that is the good advancement here made to be reported from SDG 4. But there are other challenges here that we need to consider, like new technologies and skill demands, as well as economic shocks and environmental degradation. And I am now including COVID-19 as one of, hopefully this is going to be short term, but we could say this is going to have a long-term impact towards the provision of quality education to the whole world under SDG 4. So we could see this is the new challenge. So before we are being sidetracked, not achieving our 2030 agenda, now is the right time for us to discuss what are the potential hazards being presented by COVID-19 towards our achievement of SDG 4. This is what we want to do so that our target would not be sidetracked by COVID-19. Of course, there are many other barriers, so I'm trying to actually remind all of us here, it is not just COVID-19, there are all other barriers out there to education access and educational outcomes that remain in place, and this would actually pose challenges to the monitoring of the progress of the progress remaining for the achievement of SDGs. The next session here of my presentation is to actually go through one by one of the 17 SDGs to show to you the learning objectives for SDG 7 of all the SDGs, and try to actually show to you how we can continue with our education ambitions despite the existence of COVID-19. So I base my presentation here on UNESCO's publication of Education for Sustainable Development Learning Objectives. There are a whole list of suggested approaches that we could actually use to derive the learning objectives to achieve all the 17 SDGs, using education as the underpinning SDG here. But I've made a selection of them to show to you. These selections of approaches might be applicable, in the same during the time of COVID-19. So that's my idea of actually showing you the list of the learning objectives for the SDGs. So before that, let me show to you the 3 domains that had been described under this UNESCO publication. There are 3 main domains here. The first one, cognitive domain, comprising knowledge and thinking skills, necessary to better understand the specific SDG. We are talking about 17 SDGs here, and the challenges in achieving it. The next 2 domains here are the socio-emotional domain that includes social skills, as well as self-reflection skills, values, attitudes, and motivations that enable learners to develop themselves. And the third one here is behavioral domain to describe action competencies. So we are referring to these 3 domains before we want to actually look at the learning objectives for the SDGs. So I'm going to go fast here because we have got like 17 SDGs. Luckily, we've got 17, not 34 or 68 SDGs out there. So it's only 17 SDGs. So I'm going through like half a minute for each one of these SDG. The first one is goal 1, no poverty. Being mindful here that we want to actually base everything on quality education. We want to actually say quality education is the basic foundation for the achievement of all these 17 SDGs. So we want to actually relate this with the learning objectives for the 17 SDGs. So the first one, no poverty. So we want to end poverty here in all its forms everywhere. So the learning approaches I could suggest you, ladies and gentlemen, are to develop partnerships between schools and universities in different regions of the world. We're talking about the Asian ecosphere here. So for the local context, for the Malaysian context, especially we want to actually minimize face-to-face contact. We could actually use the online systems as what we are doing now to actually start something to develop the partnerships. I believe this could actually provide the launching pad for the next session after this, when we no longer have the threat of COVID-19, not allowing us to meet face-to-face. So hopefully this could actually, with these partnerships, with the online partnerships, this could actually provide the launch pad for the next session where we could actually meet face-to-face and have a stronger partnership. The second one here is to plan and run an awareness campaign about poverty locally and globally. Again, we want to actually do this depending on the lockdown intensity we have in each of our nation. If it is not that intense, if the lockdown had been minimized, perhaps we could actually meet face-to-face. But now we could say we're talking about a number of spikes that seems not to be running away from us. We thought we had gone over the spikes, but the spikes had come back to us. So if we cannot do this face-to-face, then we go back to our online to do the awareness campaign. And of course, all the media socials out there, the most powerful tools that we could actually refer to during this pandemic time to actually help us to do this awareness campaign. And the third one here, the no poverty, is to actually plan and implement local service learning and engagement opportunities for empowering poor people, reducing their vulnerability to different hazards and increasing their resilience. This is, for me, the more traditional ones that require face-to-face to make it more effective than the first two. But we can still rely whatever limited face-to-face connections that we have now to collaborate with all the NGOs, the private sector, and the community groups to have these local service learning and engagement opportunities. So this is the first one I'm going through. The second one is zero hunger, where we want to end hunger, we want to achieve food security and improve nutrition and promote sustainable agriculture. So the learning approaches here, the first one here might be difficult to do now, but I'm just trying to actually share this with you, ladies and gentlemen, so that we could actually bear this in mind once we have COVID-19 over, inshallah, by the blessing of the Lord. We could actually organize excursions and field trips to places where sustainable agriculture is practiced, so that our audience, when I say audience, I'm not referring to just students, I'm even referring to the public, to the general public, who could actually see where the food supply comes from. So they could actually see a sustainable agriculture as the best form of example that could actually motivate them further to avoid zero hunger. Second one would be to follow food from farm to fork approach. Show this to our audience from growing, harvesting, preparing food, and of course down when they are going to consume it. And the third one, to engage students in efforts to connect leftover food with people in need. So that's the second goal. The third goal looks into good health and well-being. This is why you want to ensure healthy lives and promote well-being. The learning approaches, as you can see from the first two, it could still be about relating with our audience here and with other fellow activists and in SDGs. This is where you want to participate in ethical and reflective, let's say, essay writing. This is with the students. So this does not require any contact. You want to engage with storytelling with people with severe disease. This would require some context, but very minimal. You could do this online. And you could actually organize training on health promotion and illness prevention strategies. So I've shown you the three goals that could actually be related with our education system. And the fourth one here is looking into quality education. So this is the underpinning SDG, in my opinion, where we could actually provide the launchpad for the achievement of the other SDGs. The learning approaches we could actually look at are to develop partnerships between schools, to plan and run quality education awareness campaign, to plan and run an ESG project at the school or university or for the local community. So the scene here being shown to you in all the four SDGs here could actually be further explained in the other SDGs. I'm going to go very fast with you here because of the limited time for me here. Goal number 5, gender equality. Number 6, clean water and sanitation. 7, affordable and clean energy. Decent work and economic growth. Industry, innovation and infrastructure. Reduce inequalities. Sustainable cities and communities. Responsible consumption and production. Climate action. Life below water. Life on land. Peace, justice and strong institutions. Partnerships for the goals. The conclusion here I can share with you is that ESD would be a very important part for the global policy discourse for SDG achievement. We're talking about sustainable development and education policies becoming more and more aligned here, and education policies being recognized as the launchpad for the achievement of the other 16 SDGs. So there is a need for the lecturers and teachers to know about sustainable development, the different SDGs and the related topics and challenges. So to make this possible, all education institutions must be together, discuss this, put this into a discourse to make learning objectives delivery more effective in relation to the SDG achievement. With that, I complete my presentation. I give this back to the chair, Cikgu Nurul Asma Alef. Thanks very much to be with me. Thank you.
Thank you, Associate Professor Dr. Muhammad Wira bin Muhammad RCE for the presentation. Yes, education is the most powerful weapon that can change the world. From the presentation, we can see the importance of the need for lecturers and teachers to know about sustainable development, as education is the key that will allow many other sustainable development goals, SDGs, to be achieved. Ladies and gentlemen, next I would like to invite Professor Dr. Ahmad Farhan Muhammad Sadullah, Deputy Vice Chancellor for Academic and International USM, to give a presentation on the challenges on teaching and learning.
Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi. A very good morning. First of all, I would like to extend my thanks and congratulations to the organizers. You can all hear? Okay, welcome to all participants from throughout the world. I am going to talk about and share our experience at the university. I think when I prepared this presentation, it was last weekend. In Malaysia, as you all know, we are actually facing another challenge recently, and perhaps whatever that I'm sharing can also be used as a guide or an experience from by other universities, especially as well as by other institutions. I think the key in us facing COVID-19 and pandemic of this such, we need to be agile and we need to have some form of governance that will allow us to actually make decisions fast, and most importantly for us to ensure the outcome that we desire. In the case of us in the educational institution, we of course want our students to be able to go through their studies without much effect, which is not easy. My presentation starts with pre-COVID situation, and for higher education, we actually have been warned many times to change. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, our sector, the education sector, is one of the sector that is most resistant to change. The way we do things are quite normal. I mean, even in schools, we are still going through the normal face-to-face classroom and so on. And we have been warned many times, especially when the fourth industrial revolution came out and the 21st century learners requirement came out. But I can also say even at USM, resistance was still strong. And despite our effort to persuade everybody to change. So I can imagine majority of the universities, higher education institution, as well as the schools, perhaps we were resisting to change, not only because it's something that is new and require transformation, but it can also be costly. So when COVID came, when the pandemic came, it was an unprecedented event, of course, and we had no choice. We had to change. So I would like to share our experience on this. And first of all, we need to tackle the apprehension, because there was a lot of confusion. Okay, so it's sort of deja vu now. Back in March, we all had to adjust ourselves to life. And at the same time, to all of us, we have our students to think about. And we had to do it from home. So that was an extra challenge. So for USM, in line with the Ministry of Higher Education, which was also new at that time, if you remember, we had just had a new government. So we have placed three important missions in our experience. One, safety first, of course. Okay, safety first. Number two, learning and teaching must continue. Okay, so that was our decision. And number three, quality of learning must be maintained. Jadi, with all these three, we did our plan. And learning and teaching continues means for USM, we decided, because when COVID happened, when MCO happened, it was about week 4 of semester 2. So we decided to recommence quickly. So we were one of the first universities in the country that recommenced semester 2 after the MCO was called, as I said, among the earliest. In fact, the date was 5th and 6th of April 2020. So we made that decision, and we had about 2 weeks or 3 weeks to prepare the whole system. The students, the lecturers, the system, the infra, and so on. And therefore, my next point is to ensure an enabling governance. I think that's very important. And one of the few things that we decided was, satu is to recommence our semester 2 online as soon as possible. So we had a 2 or 3 weeks window. Number two, we also had to change the governance of our courses because we are going online. So when we go online, we now know that we have to address the composition or the syllabus, and we decided to change our exam component or our assessment method. So we had to do this within 2 or 3 weeks because we need to launch it quickly. So what we did was we asked all the schools, as we call it at USM, the program owners, to relook at their syllabus and change the curriculum so that it is going to be more assessment based rather than final exam based. And we need for them to understand that you cannot do face-to-face activities. Okay, let me move on. Just to give a scale, we had about 1,300, we have about 1,400 sessions that we had to do to cater for about 16,000 students. 2,000 courses offered. So those were the scale of things that we had to do. And we quickly changed our method of assessment to low stake, which is to reduce examination. Okay, final examination was impossible because of the lockdown. So, and we did not want our exam to be high stake because they are going to do it online, and we are not sure of the integrity and how we can manage that. So we had to change that. So that's in terms of governance. Number two, we also need to be autocratic. So my office, we came up with a lot of instruction to everybody, and we established communication. Okay. So these were some of the communication that we did. Okay, and we use a lot of infographics so that everybody can understand. Okay. There were many more. I had to throw some out because it was heavy on my slides. But these were the things that we did to quickly make everybody understand about our decisions. Okay, and these are some of the example of instructional communication to deans and head of department. As I said, during this trying time, we need to be autocratic in a way of instruction. And I think everybody appreciated it because we were working from home. And I imagine when I give this to the dean, they have to communicate with all their lecturers and their students. So we had to do it fast. So these are some of the learning experience that we had. Okay, and at the same time, we had to prepare our lecturers. Remember, I told you our resistance to change caught us, and all our lecturers had no option but to be well versed in doing teaching online. So, and I'm very grateful that we have a dedicated team to help us with this. And interestingly enough, while we were preparing for this, we also learned and we also noticed that there are many people who may have problem in accessing the internet to ensure that our learning are smooth. And we had to change mode from the most sophisticated learning and teaching sessions to low bandwidth. Okay, we were preparing for videos and whatnot because that is the gold standard. But along the way, we realized that our students, many of them are not having good access to the internet. So we again instructed everybody, and of course we had to help others to learn how to do it. We actually went from the high-end kind of teaching and learning using online to what we call low bandwidth, to the point that we are doing so that people can, students can do learning using WhatsApp, using handphone, because that is the most reliable way that many people have access to. So we did all this, and these are examples, and we were very happy within that time. As you can see, up to 10th May, we had 108 videos and many viewing hours and so on. And if you can see, our highest viewership is teaching using WhatsApp. Even though, after that, our students didn't really like WhatsApp teaching because, it's difficult for them to follow. But for those who do not have access to internet, that is the only thing that they can do, We have also asked our school and lecturers to keep track of their students' presence and attendance. And if they are not able to join the sessions, we have asked them to track them and ask them why. And we know that some of them really do not have access to any internet. So we of course went back to the snail mail. We mailed our teaching material to our students. So I'm very happy to note that USM lecturers were very caring and making sure that everybody can study. We also came up with all this kompilasi soalan jawab because there were so many questions asked. I had to answer so many questions, so we came up with FAQs like this, and we also came up with online assessment guidelines because this is something very new. So a group of us quickly came up within 2 weeks, came up with this. We got the experts in, and this was very useful because when we circulated this, everybody was actually preparing for their first batch of assessments for semester 2. This was also shared with our friends throughout the country, and I think if you would like to have access to this, just contact me. We can always share. So, however, I just would like to acknowledge some facilitations that were given by the authorities. This is very important because we had the government of Malaysia giving a lot of SOPs that make life easy for us. We also have facilitation from the accreditation bodies because, as you know, all our university programs are governed by accreditation. So the professional bodies are also helping out. So this has helped. Okay. So let me just go towards in the time remaining on how we have learned and how we are preparing for the future. But of course, this new norm was something that we were doing about a month ago. But today, as of today, we may go back to the old norm in terms of COVID and restriction to our students. Because at the moment, our students are restricted from coming to the university. But anyway, these are the things that we need to do. And at USM, our aim is to continue to provide our students with the best learning experience. And the new normal, which keeps changing rapidly, we need to be adaptive and we need to be agile. So we need to know what are the students' expectations, what are the stakeholders' expectations, and these are changing, and this is ever changing, and it's going to change again with this third wave. And for universities and for us, we need to be prepared with our teaching and learning methods, So USM has to go back to its drawing boards because we were hoping that the new norm will come in for semester 1, which starts Monday, and we would be able to employ the new way of teaching. But again, we now need to do more adjustments. So I was having a parallel meeting this morning at our NERF center, which is our crisis center to ensure safety of the campus. So, and students' mobility and students' presence is very important and can also be risky. So we need to manage them well. So we have decided at USM to go blended learning. So that was a good decision. If we had gone back to face-to-face, we will be in trouble. So now we can go up to 80% of our program being online, which we will do for the first half of the semester now. So students, we are, at that time, we allow students to stagger back into campus, but now we will only allow them to come back after midterm break if things get better. So we have done all this and we had to do it, and now we had made the right decision. So I don't have much time, but it's just to share a survey that we did. 7,000 of our students responded, so it's very good. And we asked them what were their problems. So of course, they don't prefer 100% online learning because I think they still want blended. They still want face-to-face. So we're trying to accommodate that for this semester. Connectivity is an issue, but we also see environment is a bigger issue, okay? Because unfortunately, parents, they don't understand or they don't appreciate that the student is at home, but they need to do their studies. They need to take exams. They need to do assessments. So this has actually increased the stress level of our students. So we are welcoming them to come back to the campus. But again, now with all the restrictions, we need to manage them coming back better. But many of them may have access, but do not have the best environment at home, unfortunately. So they would like to come back to campus. So these are some of the strategies that we are doing and we are already discussing. So we are doing further analysis. Just to wrap up, we are looking at their learning experience. From this survey, it was very helpful, but we need to do more, especially on their learning outcomes, and also to see how we did with our assessment, because there are many other issues, including integrity. As you know, they are open to a lot of resources online, and they can communicate with others. So we need to heighten the integrity and to give realization to the student to have the highest integrity in terms of assessment and exams. So this is going on. We are doing some study on this. And finally, I've done this webinar with another audience globally, just to highlight to you the three concerns. One is in the middle, which I've already shared, students' quality of learning. My presentation was on that. But a lot of universities, especially private universities in the world, are concerned about students' mobility and access because many universities are affected. Students, especially international students, cannot come in, and private universities, are feeling the pinch. So the sustainability of institutions of higher learning are in trouble, and this will affect quality of higher education, which is our SDG 4. But more importantly, I think sometimes we also forget the disparity in society, the haves and the have-nots. So I think this is where USM and many of our university friends are trying to equilibrate or to treat them equally. Access to quality of learning, while maybe many can access to our learning online, but there are some who cannot. So I think this is something that we need to acknowledge and need to assess. And at USM, we are welcoming them, in fact, from day one, but unfortunately, because of this situation. We hope that it will settle down and we can welcome our students who have problem of access and also problem of home environment to study to come to the university. So to me, this disruptive force of pandemic on global higher education cannot run away from at least these 3 items of concern. And if we look into SDG, I think SDG 4 must take this into consideration because I'm sure this is also part of the goal of SDG 4. So ladies and gentlemen, I believe the keywords when pandemic strikes us is empowerment and trusting. If we don't have these two, we will not be able to move. Okay, and for that, the future curriculum need to be designed, and USM has already designed it, and we are turning it into formal curriculum documents. And of course, agile academic governance is needed because there are so many uncertainties, and we really need to be agile, and we are doing that again within the weekend, the past weekend, and still doing it today. So, ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the slight hitch in the beginning of my talk. Thank you to the Secretariat for helping out with the presentation. I wish all the best to all who are participants, and thank you again for having me on board. Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Dr. Ahmad Farhan Muhammad Sarullah, Deputy Vice Chancellor for Academic and International USM. It's a good sharing as we need to always be alert with challenges that we are facing, especially now during the COVID-19 pandemic. As educators, we need to always be prepared with the best learning experience in this situation. Ladies and gentlemen, next I would like to invite the next speaker, Wan Haji Roland Ruzaidi bin Abu Hassan, Head of Southwest District Education Office, Penang, to share with us the challenges faced by schools during COVID-19.
Thank you so much, Nur Asma alias. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And a very good morning to all. Professor Dr. Muhammad Ruslan Hashim, Professor Dr. Munira Ghazali, Professor Dr. Ahmad Farhan Muhammad, respected and honorable speakers, ladies and gentlemen. Let me introduce myself. I'm Haji Roland Elias Rozaidi bin Abu Hassan, Head of Southwest District Education Office, Penang, Malaysia. First and foremost, I'd like to say thank you so much to the organizing committee for being invited to share our experience at the International Webinar Series 1, Challenges on SDG 4, Quality Education during COVID-19 Pandemic, Perspective from Asian Countries. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud to say I'm an ex-student of USM 1987 to 1991. Thank you so much again for being invited to share our experience in Southwest District Education Office regarding COVID-19 pandemic challenges. We go to the second slide. Welcome to Malaysia. Malaysia, truly Asia, a beautiful country with colorful and beautiful life. Ladies and gentlemen, in terms of education, we are in line with our national education philosophy. We have our vision and mission by giving quality education, and we want all of our students in Malaysia all-rounded achievement. Ladies and gentlemen, in Malaysia itself, we have 16 education office comprising from the state of Perlis to Johor, from the west to east to Sabah and Sarawak. And one of the key states in Malaysia is Penang itself, a beautiful island of Penang and in the mainland. So in Penang, we have 5 district education office, mainly 3 in mainland and 2 in the island. So ladies and gentlemen, please refer to the island. On the right side is the northeast district, highly density population, and on the right side is the southwest district. So our office somewhere around this area. We are very happy because we have more oxygen. We visit the green areas, and Balik Pulau popular with durian season. Ladies and gentlemen, as we all understand, we are now facing a difficult situation, facing the COVID-19 pandemic. So, as a leader of District Education Office, I would like to emphasize to all educators, especially to our school leaders, teachers, to practice not only 3 C's and 3 W's, but our tagline, we give our full commitment and giving highly competent and consistent in our objectives. In terms of demography in Southwest District, we have 52 schools. We are a small district, 59 primary school and 12 secondary school and 1 vocational college. In terms of teachers, for primary or elementary school, we have around 1,515 teachers at the elementary level, and at the secondary level, around 752. For our students enrollment, more or less around 30,000 students, plus we also having preschool in government and private schools. Ladies and gentlemen, we know we have to give the best for our society, for our children. That is why during MCO, Movement Control Order, we understand that our government of Malaysia implemented MCO for almost 3 months or more than 100 days, students not going to school. So we have to follow MOE, Ministry of Education and Ministry of Health and National Security Council guidelines. School closed, but we must make sure that we reach our stakeholders, our school heads, our teachers, and our students. As mentioned earlier by our professor, learning and education must go on. So ladies and gentlemen, but how are we going to reach them? So we have 3 or 4 stages. At the first stage, the easiest way is through communication. In this 21st century learning and teaching process, we communicate to our stakeholders, to our teachers, our students, our community leaders through WhatsApp and Telegram. I'm talking about micro situation, not talking about the whole state of Penang or the whole country. Our study case more to our district, very small district with 52 schools. So having challenges like limited interaction, internet coverage, and using of gadgets. We have to understand not all parents having good gadgets, and not all parents can provide internet coverage, internet data to their children. So we think about action plan through online meetings with my officers and all the head of departments. We set up task force and thinking about tactical and operational plans. So at the second phase, we also communicate actively to reach all the stakeholders, teachers, parents, community leaders. And for this time around, I would like to thank you to the ICT team, your ICT officers, giving trainings to teachers, educators, through Google meetings in how to use. It's something like blessing in disguise. With this COVID-19, people know how to communicate through Google Meets. Otherwise, maybe we just send photos or videos through WhatsApp and Telegram. So for your information, ladies and gentlemen, our teachers, especially in Southwest District Education Office and in Penang in general, so we fully utilize. We set up new timetable. We fully utilize in reaching out to students, giving good learning and teaching processes. We give formative assessments through Google Classroom, Google Meetings, and other communicative platforms. For example, through Skype, Webex, and webinar like today. What is the challenges? Of course, for the long period staying at home, it's quite difficult to get students' participation. Reason given, of course, one of the reasons is about internet coverage, using of gadgets, data limitation, usage limitation. For example, in one family having 2 or 3 kids schooling, let's say at the same time, teachers doing teaching and learning process, they have to take turns and somehow they skip teaching and learning process given by their school teachers. So our action plan, we provide notes, we photo state notes, educational resources, we post it through snail mail, we send it to the mosque, to the community leaders, to the kopitiam, to coffee shop, and we distribute. We try to find that if any teachers living somewhere around that area, so we share all these notes to our students. And at the third stage, I would like to say thank you to all of our teachers in Southwest District Education Office for giving full commitments and highly competent and consistent in doing good jobs. They did pre-recorded educational resources, learning and teaching activities, posted to Telegram, to YouTube, to Google Classroom, and etc. The main challenges will be monitoring system. How to make sure that our students watch all these educational resources. So our action plan is reaching out to the parents, and we communicate actively. Our teachers, our school leaders communicate actively, persuade, advise, and giving ideas to parents, to teachers, to make sure that our students getting knowledge during this COVID-19 pandemic. Ladies and gentlemen, we know after 100 days not coming to school, school reopened in stages. In 24th of June 2020, government to Ministry of Education ordered school reopened, but we cater for Form 5 and Form 6 students. So we call teachers to come back and have the school doing the school preparation by following the SOP, pre-opening, we sanitize school perimeter, class arrangement, special rooms arrangement, canteen arrangement. We prepare new timetable, procedures, guidelines, and we make sure that students, they are eager to come to school and how their mental and emotional readiness. And these challenges, we ask our counselor to do some sort of counseling for teachers doing the professional learning communities, CPD and capacity building. And of course, we have monthly tests, and at the end of November, by November, we have this final exam. And now it's ongoing process for Form 5 sitting for trial exam throughout, I think, Penang, and for Southwest District, we are ongoing process. So, ladies and gentlemen, other challenges we are facing during this suspected COVID-19 is anything happens, suspected COVID-19 case in school, it will affect attendance. And for your information, we are now focusing for these 2 months, 3 months for Form 5 attendance in school. We want to make sure we can achieve our Director of Education KPIs 95%. And I would like to say salam from our Director, Tuan Abdul Rashid bin Abdul Samad. Assalamualaikum. Very sorry, quite late. Okay. So, if this case happen, it will affect students' attendance. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to share in things that we do, we focus by using tools like OSCAR method. I will ask my officers, even our school leaders, if you want to do tactical or operational plan, what is the outcomes that we really want? And we have to refer to the situation by referring to the data-driven, see the past and current situation and what we expect in future. And when we choose the choices, we have to see the consequences by looking at our intervention and strategies, to our tactical and operational plan, and of course, we are doing post-mortem to make sure that our school and our student can get quality education from our beloved teachers in school. Ladies and gentlemen, last but not least, the Penang level, state education level and district education level, we have this system, support system, we call it SLO, School Liaison Officer, or SLO, meaning that like Program Sekolah Angkat. So our officers, we visit school and do some sort of supervision, helping them, support the school, and then when they're back to the office, they will do the assessment, preparing reports and analysis, and do the follow-up and follow-through. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being invited to this webinar. As mentioned earlier, once a teacher, forever a teacher. I would like to advise myself and all of you out there to practice the 3 C's, plus the earlier 3 C's, commitment, competent, and consistent. But our government asking us to practice these 3 C's, avoid crowded places, confined spaces, and close communication or conversation, and by practicing the 3 W's, by wearing masks, taking care of cleanliness, washing everything, and one. Again, thank you so much for the organizing committee for being invited to share our experience, challenges in COVID-19, especially in Southwest District Education Office. May Allah bless us, bless our country, and this COVID-19 we can say goodbye. Sekian, wabillahi taufiq wa hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for all the participants learned a new method today, OSCAR method, SMART, and support system. Hope with the presentation, we can start to take action in solving the challenges faced by educators in teaching and learning during COVID-19. I believe we have been doing it innovatively and creatively to sustain the process of learning and teaching throughout the pandemic challenges. Ladies and gentlemen, the next speaker for today is Mark Mann, Associate Program Specialist, Section for Inclusive Quality Education, IQE, UNESCO, Asia Pacific Regional Bureau for Education.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Big thank you to the organizers at USM the RCE in Penang, and all the other speakers. Pleasure to be with you, speaking from Bangkok this morning. Let me just try to share my screen. There we go. I hope everybody can see that. Thank you again. I just want to, first of all, acknowledge the three previous speakers. Excellent information. Our first, the professor talking about the importance of SDG 4 in achieving all of the SDGs. Much appreciated to hear that this morning. You know, not specifically on COVID, but just overall the importance of quality of education, and we shouldn't lose focus of that in such trying times. We need to remember to commit to quality education. The second speaker, thank you very much for talking about some of your specific challenges. I was particularly interested in the modifications that you have been making to how you assess students and how you evaluate learning outcomes and that. And the last speaker on the challenges at the school level, the one keynote I took from your speech was the importance of a clear vision, to be able to communicate the clear vision to students, to teachers, to parents, to the entire community. So much appreciated for those previous speakers and their inputs. Now, I would like to share a little bit about some of the work that UNESCO is doing, particularly with a regional view. As the office in UNESCO Bangkok is a regional office, we work with 46 countries all across Asia and Pacific. So I'm just going to give you a few snippets, or a few examples of some of the work that we've been doing out of the Bangkok office for the past few months in response to this huge challenge, which is COVID-19. So first of all, a quick snapshot. You're all, of course, very aware of the circumstances, but if you're looking closely at Asia Pacific, you can see there's a mix. Some countries, you can see that schools have fully reopened. Some countries are completely closed still. Physical schools are closed, so they're using alternative measures. And in some schools, there's a mix. There's the blended method or partially open methods, depending on particular regional locations and so on. So there's a huge mix of stages that countries are in, and their response to this crisis is very different from in many places. Now, one of the things that UNESCO, particularly here in the regional office, did, or one of the first things we did, was to create some regional support strategy. Now, please keep in mind that a lot of UNESCO's work is upstream. We work with ministries of education and governments most often, and not directly with schools or institutes. So a lot of our effort went to guiding ministries of education off the bat. So our regional support strategy is aimed at ministries of education, which can then support their own countries, schools, teachers, and communities. And with this support strategy, we had 3 pillars, okay? First was to lead the dialogue. We wanted to be out in front in order to communicate directly with countries, with education stakeholders on what kind of response is needed. The second pillar was providing customized technical support as needed. So if countries came to us directly and said, we need specific support in a specific area, we would be able to respond to their needs. And the last pillar was to generate knowledge, data, and collect information. So a lot of research studies, a lot of finding out what's happening across different countries in the region. Now, a few examples of what this means exactly. So regional pillar 1 is leading the dialogue, of course, is participating in events like this. A lot of webinars these days. We can't have in-person meetings, so it's communicating to our member states and stakeholders via webinars, via online meetings as often and as much as possible on strong measures to support the response. A good example is the COVID-19 response toolkit as well, which we are coordinating through education stakeholders in our headquarters, which you can find on UNESCO's website, and I can share links to that as well later. And promoting different support strategies that are needed. For example, looking at equity issues. How do we ensure that girls and marginalized populations, ethnic minorities and so on are still included in the responses that are needed by countries? The second pillar, of course, technical support. So as countries come to us and say they need support, we're there to respond. An example from our office specifically was that Lao PDR came to us and said, we need your help in coming up with a response strategy or a response plan. So some of our colleagues worked with them on that. Similar to with Myanmar, they wanted some support in developing some response strategies. So our office has helped with that. But one of the more interesting ones was a collaboration with multiple international development partners, such as UNICEF, the World Bank, which was the framework for reopening schools. This is a guidance document that countries, which is available to all, a guidance document for countries as they tend to go through these stages of reopening their schools. How do we contextualize and adapt school reopening to your context? How do we make sure that all stakeholders are engaged and involved in the best manner and best methods of reopening the school? So there's four different main core pillars. Safety is number one, but then thinking of how children or learners are going to be actually learning, including the marginalized, those people who don't have access to education in rural populations where they may have difficulty, and so on. And of course, well-being, not just safety from the virus or pandemic, but their actual well-being, making sure that their social and emotional well-being is taken care of. Lastly, the other pillar that we're doing is collecting a lot of information as we can from our countries and member states. We do this through a variety of different methods. We've engaged in a lot of different surveys with member states, with education stakeholders across the region. You can see an example of an early childhood education survey. We've conducted a rapid situational analysis with various partners on how countries are responding. And then we have online knowledge portals that gather best practices and information. We have the Asia Pacific SDG 4 website. We have Flexible Learning Strategies website that are collecting and sharing information on this. Just to give you one of the examples from this information collection that I was involved in directly. In the UNESCO Bangkok office, I coordinate a network which is called the Network on Education Quality Monitoring in Asia Pacific. NECMAP is the acronym that we use. And this is a network of member institutes all across Asia and Pacific with the main focus on learning assessment to measure quality of education. And so what we did was we sent out a rapid survey in April to get a sense of how our members and how our countries in the Asia Pacific region were responding to this disruption, in particularly with the look at assessments and high stakes exams, because that was one of the first issues that came up with countries is how do they conclude the school year or the term, how do they measure the learning outcomes, and they wanted some response when they couldn't hold in-person exams or assessments. So we did a survey which led to production of two documents in particular. You can see the links there on the screen, an issue note on assessments and a working document on different strategies for coping with high stakes exams. some of the examples from this survey that we collected, right? This is specific to Asia Pacific region. There were a multitude of responses and adaptations to how countries wanted to approach learning assessments. Some countries just said, we will maintain the exams. For example, perhaps because of the context-specific nature, maybe the country was not, did not have to shut down schools. They didn't have a big outbreak of the coronavirus, so they could maintain exams, but they implemented some special arrangements, physical distancing, limited space within an examination testing center, and so on. Some countries outright canceled exams. Kazakhstan was one of the first countries that just said, no, we will not proceed with any sorts of exams for this term or this school year. And then the most common response, of course, was postponing the exams until they had better information on how to proceed. A lot of countries chose this route. But then some countries took some a more proactive approach to change assessment methods, moving to online assessment or limiting, for example, limiting high-stakes exams and moving to more formative approaches, utilizing teacher input, teacher feedback, and so on. So those were a few of the examples of how countries responded to exams and assessments. Some of the main outcomes or findings, of course, I don't think any of this will surprise you or shock you, but of course, all of this changes the way we look at teaching, the way we look at learning, and the way we look at how to assess our learners. So this is an issue not just for teachers, but an issue for our policymakers as well at the country level. They have to try to adapt to the current circumstance and identify how are we going to address these learning gaps that are coming up with school disruption and remote learning. We need to, as some of the previous speakers talked to, we need to think about these flexible approaches. You know, one size is not going to fit every particular case. And some students respond better to these flexible approaches. And as one of the speakers mentioned, that students still want in-person or face-to-face teaching. So how do we shift our approaches? How do we make a balance between these flexible approaches is a big challenge and something that we need to address. As I mentioned, a big concern was summative assessments or high-stakes exams. And we need to think of adapting these to the current context. How do we move away from such a high-stakes exam approach or summative assessment and look to more flexible formative approaches? And as we can see, many countries are looking at online and distance learning modalities. A few more examples. So when we talk about these remote learning strategies, you can see from the figure, countries are faced with multiple challenges, mainly because of the challenge of moving to online or information technology enabled learning. Some countries just do not have the capacity. They don't have, at least in this chart, it's called the digital maturity. You can see some countries might have very low digital maturity. That could be both technical capacity, internet connectivity, but it might also be the human capacity to actually use digital platforms, to use digital learning methods. So there'll be a range of different countries will fall within a range, right, between low digital maturity and high digital maturity. And you can see the different examples of how to respond, where you might send out assignments through physical mail to your students, or the countries might adopt TV or radio programs. Maybe teachers in schools and students are comfortable using email messaging or text messaging, which some of the previous speakers noted. And then you move to the more high digital maturity where you're actually using online platforms, course content is uploaded and applied online. And then you use modalities like this where teachers are engaging via video chat, video conferences with their students. So there's 4 examples of countries at different levels. So for example, Afghanistan, which has relatively low digital maturity for multiple reasons. They're producing a lot of offline materials, creating videos and content that is then sent out to learners and teachers. Thailand, where we are, they've utilized the TV broadcast program and other platforms such as Facebook to deliver content to their students. Bhutan, we got information where teachers are regularly communicating with their students and the parents via emails, both sending assignments, receiving assignments, sending feedback. And places like China with high digital maturity using a lot of online platforms that have been created so schools can leverage that. So with that, a lot of different examples of where we're at, but a few key messages that I want to remind us all with. Number 1 is we need to empower our teachers and not to underestimate the capabilities of our teachers. Teachers are extremely resourceful, extremely resilient, and they do an amazing job to adapt to challenging situations. But that still needs that they do need our support. So providing up training on digital modalities, digital pedagogies, and so on, making sure they have access to technology and resources. And as we reopen schools, making sure that schools are safe for our learners and for our teachers. The other, just one quick example of lesson learned was providing incentives for teachers to not only take on more responsibility, but to then transfer knowledge that they've learned to other teachers. And this was an example from Australia, where teachers would be provided an extra financial incentive for hosting their own sort of capacity building events with other teachers. So if they learned something new, they would then pass it on to other teachers in their school or in their local districts and so on. So that was an interesting way of providing incentives for teachers to upskill. In the previous presentation, I noted one of the key important things was having a clear vision and a clear strategy so that teachers, students, and families don't have misaligned communication strategies and they're not confused. So making sure that there's consultation and effective public communication to all stakeholders is crucial in these times. Making sure that they know when a school is reopening, what exactly are the measures and strategies that are going to be in place. Ensuring inclusion, equity, and fairness. This is key. As has been noted, not all students have access to internet. Not all students have access to a telephone or mobile device or a laptop to even be able to use some of the online pedagogy. So countries and schools need to be able to ensure that all learners will have access or continued access to learning opportunities. A key question, of course, is how do we ensure the validity and reliability in learning? You know, a disruption of even 1 month can lead to a significant learning loss as students are faced without the opportunity to engage in learning opportunities. So we need to be able to have some sort of mitigation to this. And this means we might have to change our approaches, considering a lot of project-based tasks, where we give assignments that they have to sort of individually self-direct themselves in learning. Means less hands-on, perhaps, by the teachers, but giving them guidance on how students can feed their own learning themselves. And again, I keep repeating this, but you know, looking at ways to balance high-stakes exams and formative assessments. This is, in some countries, this presents an opportunity. A lot of countries have relied on high-stakes exams for a long time. in order to measure learning outcomes. But this is an opportunity for countries to rethink how to actually measure learning outcomes, thinking of more formative assessment guidelines, making sure that teachers are giving proper and effective and timely feedback to students in their learning. And with that, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to engage with you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions or engage with you further. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the presentation. From the presentation, we can see that place or location doesn't matter. There is always a way to ensure the continuity of learning. As Mr. Markman said earlier, different regions have different systems, contacts, resources, and capacities, but the learning will never stop. Learning never stops. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, now I would like to invite the next speaker, Puan Ariza binti Ibrahim and Cik Fasha Abdul Hamid from Dato' Secondary School, Butterworth, Penang, to share their school adaptations on new normal practices during COVID-19 in local context. Thank you, Madam Andrew, and thank you so much to all speakers, respective speakers. Assalamualaikum and good morning to all participants. I'm Ariza and this is my partner, Ms. Fasha. We are from Dato' Secondary School, Penang. Today, we are going to share our school adaptation on new normal practices during COVID-19 in a local context. Firstly, we have made a SWOT analysis through our school view. So regarding the topic, this is our SWOT analysis. We already find out 4 aspects. The first one is about the strength. There are flexible time for both teachers and students, variety online teaching approaches, quick response to student questions, and the last one is increased interest in teaching and learning. Our weaknesses are no personal interaction with students, internet connection, sometimes frustrating. This means that sometimes it's a very poor connection. Teacher less experience in using online teaching, some of teachers. Student participation during online teaching, sometimes is very poor participation. The opportunities are, we are able to share variety of learning material, promote self-learning, and also promote non-life learning. And the threats are teachers like to use traditional teaching methods, cost of internet connection. For some of the teachers and students, it might be very high cost. Learning objective not 100% achieved, and students take time to understand the concept. Okay, so we have seen the SWOT analysis. Okay, now I'm going to share with all the participants how we adapt the new normal practice in our teaching and learning in Malaysia in SMK Dato'. So as we see, we undergo, all right, with the slide here, okay, we undergo 2 situations. All right, one will be during movement control order, and another one will be after movement control order. Okay, during movement control order, the teaching and learning take place from home. So as you see here, there are a few approaches that we have used for our teaching and learning. There are Kahoot, WhatsApp, Zoom, Yahoo Mail, Telegram, Google Meet, Webex meeting, Google Classroom, and even messages. All right. So to make it organized, all right, to make it organized and systematic, our school admin set a timetable as a guideline for all the teachers. All right. The purpose of the timetable is to make sure the online teaching are more systematic, organizable, avoid overlapping class, and students able to prepare for the upcoming lesson. All right. Okay.
So through these approaches, indirectly we promote self-learning among the students. Okay. Sometimes teachers will share their teaching through YouTube, video, recording, or Zoom. Okay. So to make sure the learning objective achieved, we do question and answer through WhatsApp, Zoom, and so on. As you see here, there are a few examples that I can show you the question and answer that been done between the students and teacher. Alright, so this is the student response to the teacher's explanation. Okay, so this part, okay, as you all see, the most important thing in teaching and learning are the student assessment. How we do the student assessment. Okay, alright, we assess students, alright, by asking the student to reflect back towards our explanation by writing up any step that we ask for, alright. We ask the student to explain the concept again through online writing. Even sometimes we do quizzes through Kahoot, or we do online marking between students and teachers. So with this thing, both parties will alert the progress of teaching and learning. Other approaches, okay, this is an example that what I said just now, how we ask the students to respond, okay. So other approaches that we use beside that, the teaching and learning are education TV slot, online teaching by the expert teachers, and so on. Okay, this is the teaching and learning after MCO. The teaching and learning after MCO takes place in school. So we have to make sure the teacher always reminds students to obey the SOP. Right, we adapt all SOP in all our program in school. There are few strategies that we have done in our school, alright, such as the gallery walk, peer-to-peer teaching, and teaching and learning in class as usual. Okay, I'm going to pass back the thing to Puan Ariza.
Thank you, Ms. Fasha. We also prepared the postmortem, and this is our postmortem. The postmortem, the purpose of postmortem is to identify students' problems or students that can't participate in online learning. So action will be taken by sharing material through other mediums. The second one is to construct suitable assessment for students. And the last one is to ensure validity and reliability in learning. And even this postmortem, we already send it to the Department of Education, Penang. This postmortem is also actually can improve individually their teaching and learning for the upcoming situation as well. As a conclusion, we divide it into two aspects. The first one, the teachers aspect that can improve teachers' skill in both online teaching methods and even 21st century teaching methods. And the second one is improve teachers' effectiveness in public communication. And now the teachers really adapt their teaching through Google Classroom. And the second one is the students' aspect. It can improve student skill in finding learning resources, promote self-learning, and even after MCO, students also continuously using online learning with teachers. And also, the students can improve their curiosity and exploration in learning. Last but not least, we also have two quotes to share. To share two quotes. Your attitude determines your direction, and what I learned today doesn't make yesterday wrong. It makes tomorrow better. Thank you.
From both of us. All right.
Thank you, Madam Ariza and Ms. Fasha, for the great presentation, the good sharing. So we can see that the teachers use varieties of approaches to give the best learning experiences for their students. So hopefully with the sharing approaches, all of us can improve our teaching and learning method, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. Learning never stops. Teaching will never give up. Okay, learning never stops. Teaching will never give up. Ladies and gentlemen, the next and the last speaker for today is Mr. Edi Shaputra from Angkatan Guru Indonesia.
we would like to welcome Mr. Edisha Putra to share on the new normal practices during COVID-19 in Indonesia. Welcome.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, introduce myself. My name is Edi Sabra. I am from Siak Regency, Royal Province, Indonesia. Okay, now I present about new normal adaptation from Indonesia. Actually, in my province. Actually, in Indonesia, SOP for new normal adaptation same with another country. Before the student enter the classroom, they are hand washing, and next measure of the body temperature, like that. Next, I think the SOP from Indonesia same with another country. Thank you. Next, the learning activity in Indonesia we call belajar dari rumah. It's meaning the learning from home under guided from the parents, like that. For online class, virtual class in Indonesia, commonly the teacher using Zoom, Google Meet, Webex, RSEN, Sociology, for learning management system. I think for online class, it's same with another country. Next, but in Indonesia, I want to share the challenges from adaptation of normal learning in pandemic COVID-19 era. The challenge is Indonesia is very large country. We are content from very many island by the villager. In the village, we have the big problem to apply the online class. The main problem is limit access to device and internet, like that. And then the teacher is not familiar with learning management system. So this is a very interesting challenge to upgrade teacher competence in a new normal learning, like this time. So the teacher in Indonesia must upgrade their competence to can use learning management system like Zoom, Google Meet, Webex, RSEN, and Sociology. But only the teacher in Indonesia not familiar with this learning management system. I think this big trouble in Indonesia for apply the virtual class. I hope the find the solution for. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Mr. Edisha Putra. It's good to hear from you. There are similarities between the approaches used. So maybe one day after the pandemic is solved or is over, we can visit Mr. Edisha Putra's school and continue to share more teaching and learning experience between countries. Okay, question from a participant. I would like to know what is UNESCO's role in helping the governments in this pandemic
climate, pandemic climate, policy-wise?
Thank you for the question. Yes, our role is to provide advice and guidance based on the best available evidence that we're able to collect. So as I showed in my presentation, guidance including how to safely and effectively reopen schools. And this provides guidance not only for the physical environment that a school will need, but also for measures that teachers, parents, and learners will need to know in advance of these school reopenings. So a lot of our effort is to communicate effectively with ministries of education, providing the knowledge that we're able to collect from across all different member states. Now, you must keep in mind that we cannot force governments to what to do. Our role is support, guidance, advice on some of the best practices that we know that are available. And then it is up to governments, ministries of education within each country to try and utilize this evidence for their local context. Because, as you know, each country has different and varied contexts, even within countries. So being able to utilize the best available evidence that we can provide. So that is our role, merely providing support and guidance to ministries of education. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Markman, for the answer. The next question is, I'm curious how assessment are effective to assess student learning during online learning. Is this question open to all the speakers?
Maybe if I can. Yeah, I mean, it is an area where there's a lot of mystery still. And just to share our experience at USM, I think first thing we have to decide whether the assessment is a formative assessment or a summative assessment. During pandemic, at USM, we decided that we try as much as possible to make it a formative kind of assessment and to make it low stake, because we are not sure of the ability for students to be able to uphold integrity in this total sense. So, but I think if we have been aligning our assessment towards learning outcomes, we have more room to maneuver to ensure that our student learning outcomes are being met. So it goes back to our design. So, but again, if it is like SPM and so on, it will be quite difficult because it's a one syllabus and assessment rubrics have been determined and so on. Maybe it's quite difficult because at the moment, even the big, even Cambridge assessment and examinations are still done online. I think are still not being done online. So that is a big task. But if we are looking at learning outcomes, I think we can actually experiment. And to me, the key is design, in the design of it. So if we design it well, we can adopt many different kinds of assessment to ensure that learning outcomes are being met. So, so what we are doing at USM is for semester 1, which is starting next week, we have asked everybody to redesign their curriculum. We can do that at university, of course, because we have the autonomy to do so. But still, we are still not sure whether the learning outcomes are assisted learning outcomes because of the integrity of the assessment, or it's truly a learning outcome. So we need to still do some study on that. A bigger task is actually for psychomotor assessment, where we need labs, we need field work. These are big challenges. We don't have an answer yet, but many of our learning outcomes, especially from the domain that requires affective and psychomotor attributes or taxonomies, we need to do it face to face. Of course, we can do virtual learning and so on, but it's not that effective. So there's no one straight answer. We are experimenting. We are commissioning a team to look into the outcome of the last semester, learning outcome as well as assessment effectiveness. Perhaps maybe after the end of this semester, we will have more database, and maybe we can share either through publication or through seminars like this. So that's my quick response to that question, Chairman, moderator. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the answer, Prof. Again, I read the question. Is there any method that used by any school to create student awareness to join the online learning? I'm asking this because sometimes, even though the students have the access to internet, sometimes they just ignore and prefer not to join.
Thank you for the question, teacher. Of course, as we understand, we are having difficulties to make sure that all students participate actively during teaching and learning process at home. So that is why at the second stage, just now I mentioned about how we reach our students through not through online medium, but we post everything, all the resources, all photostat notes to students. But for the time being, because now all of the students now in school, that challenges now we cut off into 50%. So we understand now learning process is ongoing, especially for elementary and secondary school. But for the Form 5 student now, they are sitting for the trial examination. So anyhow, I would like to thank you to all teachers, educators in Southwest District Education Office in particular, but in general, Penang State Education Department working tightly with all parties to make sure our learning process achieve our goals. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tuan Haji Roland. But another question here, is it possible to have examinations during COVID-19, same as normal condition examination, to make students a better preparation than the previous semester? It is effective how teacher make assessment without using code in marking.
You want me to answer that question?
Maybe to
Yes,
other.
it's possible because if you understand the learning process, we have these two assessments. One we call it formative assessment. It's an ongoing assessment inside or outside the classroom. And the second one will be formative assessment. This is to some extent we make sure that at least for the time being, the student can sit for final examination. Something that happened and in our planning. Thank you. But as we all understand, anyhow, anything we do, we have to follow SOP, Standard Operating Procedures, given by our MOE, Ministry of Education and Ministry of Health, plus our NSC, National Security Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Tuan Haji Roland.
Yes, you're welcome.
We are still waiting for one more question maybe. Okay, another good question here. How do we go about helping learners in terms of their mental well-being in this pandemic time? Again, how do we go about helping learners in terms of their mental well-being in this pandemic time? Maybe we can hear from Professor Farhan.
Thank you. Not easy to answer. Our effort is to communicate with the students. As you know, university students, they are not in close contact with us as opposed to school children. But one way to help them is to communicate with them, and we have asked at USM, every student is being assigned to penasihat academic. So we have instructed penasihat academic to contact all our students to make sure that they are doing well. And I think communication, nothing beats communication. Not every student are fortunate enough to have caring parents and parents that provide time to their well-being and so on. So this is where we need to come in, and I'm sure teachers are excellent at this. We should learn from you also. The only thing is that at university, our students are more on the adult side, so we also have to give them space. So that is one. The other one, we also have counselors. If we actually we in fact we did online counseling. I'm very thankful to Pusat Pengajar Ilmu Pendidikan at USM, as well as our counselors in the Hak Ehwal Pembangunan Pelajar. We actually offer counseling sessions during MCO, so that if our students have any problems, they have somebody to talk to. The third is the course lecturer themselves. And I think we are very fortunate at USM that we have course lecturers that are also very concerned. As I said earlier, when we have cases of students not being able to gain access to our courses, they take the trouble to contact them by phone and to make sure that they can have access either through pen drive or through what we call even hard copies that were being mailed to them. Not many, but there are cases of that nature. So to me, we cannot leave the students alone. And for schools, I guess parents also need to be educated. We need to also expose to the new norms to our parents. One thing that for USM, we actually did a lot of training for the lecturers, but we made one mistake. We did not do enough training for the students. So we assume that the students can actually adapt to the new norm, which was our mistake. So we have learned from that mistake. Towards the end of the last semester, we started to have webinars with our students to prepare them better. So I think those are the few things that we have done at USM. But of course, it's not inclusive. Not everybody will join all these programs. But we hope through the penasihatan academic, we can actually try to tackle every student. So that's my response. Thank you, moderator.
Thank you, Prof. Okay, thank you for the Q&A session. Before we end the session, I would like to ask all the participants to switch on your video so we can have the photography session. Okay, thank you to all speakers, participants. Okay, we have done with the photography session. Okay, thank you for the cooperation. Thank you for sharing ideas information, knowledge. Okay. Hope that the objectives of this webinar are achieved. This webinar will serve as a platform for educators, teachers, students to share their knowledge and experiences in facing this new educational challenge, which is post-COVID-19 pandemic, to ensure the goal of SDG 4 will not be left behind. Also, a hope that this collaboration will be continued through the network that has been built through this webinar. Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Okay,
Bye.
thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much.